What's up everybody, I'm Seth Fowler and today I'm going to show you how to draw a shoe. I've been doing the If I Design series on my channel for a little while now, where I take a popular sneaker and I redesign it the way that I would design it if I had the opportunity. And the interest that you guys have shown in that series is absolutely unbelievable. In fact, I've gotten a lot of people tweeting me pictures or emailing me pictures of shoes that they drew themselves. And the fact that that series is inspiring some of you guys to create your own sneakers is like the coolest thing in the world. So I figured a cool way to help foster the creativity of these budding designers and help them in any way that I can would be to bring out a tutorial on how I draw sneakers and how I learned to draw sneakers in design school. And I figured if I'm going to show you guys how to draw a shoe, I want to show you guys how to draw the best shoe in my opinion, or just my favorite shoe, the Air Jordan 1. There are multiple reasons why I decided to pick this shoe, and it's not just because I love this shoe and I love this colorway. The main reason is that this shoe is a great shoe to start sketching. The construction of this sneaker is similar to a lot of the other shoes out there, so it's a good starting point and a good base if you want to start sketching more shoes. It's also not the most complicated shoe in the world, so it'll be a little bit easier to learn on this shoe than something else. The method of drawing that I'm going to show you today is very heavily influenced by design sketching, so this is the way some footwear designers draw their shoes. I'm going to show you how to draw this shoe from the side, because again, that's the way that most footwear designers start with their concepts. Yes, you could do it from an angle, but that's so much more complicated, and that's not really a way that you determine how the shoe is going to look. That's just sort of a cool way to show a different angle of the sneaker. This obviously isn't the only way to draw a shoe. In fact, it's probably not even the best way to draw a shoe. This is just the way that I was taught and the way that I do it, and this is the way I'm going to teach you guys. So without any further ado, let's get started. So the tools that I'm going to use to sketch this shoe are a Wacom sketch tablet and then Photoshop CC. I've got some brushes that are designed to replicate like pens and pencils, so it should look as if I was drawing this on a piece of paper. And to be honest, you don't need all this crazy tech to be able to do what I'm doing. You can do all of this perfectly fine with a pencil and a piece of paper. But if you would like to check out all the products that I'm using in the video, including the camera, the lighting, the Wacom tablet, I've linked all of it in the description below. So the first thing that I do when I start drawing a sneaker is actually sketch a flat horizontal line, which will be where the shoe is actually touching the ground. It's the bottom of the outsole. Then if you actually look at a pair of sneakers, you'll notice that the toe of the shoe actually curves a little bit up off the ground. Now that curve varies depending on the shoe that you're drawing, but for the Air Jordan 1, it's not too intense of a curve. So that'll be the next line that I'm going to draw. And in the same way that the toe of the sneaker kind of curves off the ground, the heel of the sneaker also has a slight curve as well. However, this curve is a lot shorter, especially in the case of the Air Jordan 1. Then for me, the next step is to actually outline the outer lines of the sneaker. So the heel, the toe, and also this curve up along the tongue of the shoe. One thing you might have noticed is that I try and draw every line in one quick motion, and that's so it doesn't get rough or jaggedy. You may also notice that I sometimes leave tails at the end of my lines, and that's just because I like to have a good follow through when I draw a smooth line, because if I get too focused at drawing a line and stopping at a certain point, the line doesn't usually come out in the shape that I want it, because I'm focusing more on where I'm stopping the pen than the actual shape of the line. And worst case scenario, you can always erase the tails if you want. Now, one thing I love about drawing digitally is that if I don't get a line exactly how I want it on the first time, I can just go back and redo it. And moving forward in the video, you'll definitely see me do that a lot. Then once you've got the basic outline or the outer edge of the shoe drawn, what you want to do is start going in with the large details. An important thing to keep in mind is that this midsole line usually isn't a straight line across the shoe. It usually follows the shape of the outsole at least a little bit. The next detail that I'm going to draw is this large red panel on the heel of the shoe. And even though this is technically two separate panels and it's divided by this black line, it does form this one overall shape. So I'm going to start with this overall shape and then divide it up later on. The next detail that I'm going to sketch is this panel right here that holds the laces. And the reason I'm sketching this panel next is because once I have this in place, I can relate all the other elements of the shoe to either this panel or this heel section right here. Next, I'm going to go in with the thin leather paneling that goes around the edge of the toe and the lace eyelets. So now that I've got these panels laid out, what I'm going to do is come in with the Nike swoosh and separate this back panel right here. And the way the Nike swoosh usually lands is right in the middle of the midfoot, right there. A good way to center the Nike swoosh is to actually center the end of it to the top of this bump right here. So the way that I start to do this is to draw sort of an egg shape or an oval right underneath that bump that I was talking about in the center of the midfoot, and that's going to be the end and the loop of the Nike swoosh. Then what I'm going to do is actually draw the bottom line of the Nike swoosh, and that line comes in from the back of the shoe kind of at an angle. Once I have that bottom line drawn, what I'm going to do is go in with another line very similar to that line except a little bit higher up. Then if you look at the shoe itself, you'll notice that the top line of the Nike swoosh actually ends in almost a vertical line. So what I'm going to do is draw a vertical line on the shoe right here as kind of a guideline, and then I'm going to connect the top line of the Nike swoosh with the vertical line. From here, I'm just going to outline the back half of the egg shape, and you're good to go. Another tip if you're drawing digitally is to draw your guidelines on a separate layer so you can just turn them off once you're done. The next part that I'm going to draw is this black line that bisects this red panel right back here on the heel. And this part's really easy because all you have to draw is one line, and that's the top line of this panel right here. There you go. So the next bit that I'm going to add is the bottom of the midsole where you can actually see the outsole peeking through. And in this case, it's bright red, so it's a very obvious detail. This line also directly mimics and is basically parallel to the outside line of the bottom of the shoe. One thing that you might have noticed that I just did a little bit differently is that towards the toe of the sneaker, this line kind of angles up a little bit more than the bottom of the shoe, and that's because a little bit more of the red outsole is visible on the toe of the shoe. Now it's time to add the overall outer shape of the Wings logo. We're not going to go in with any of the details, just the overall shape of it. So now that we've pretty much got all the big details laid out on the shoe, what I'm going to do now is go in and refine some of the edges. So for example, see how this edge right here is a little bit sharp? Well, if you look at the shoe itself, it's got a very nice rounded edge or a nice radius on the edge. So what I'm doing now is going in and adding details like that, basically refining the bigger details on the shoe. While I'm at it, I'm also going in and erasing some of the details that I no longer feel like we need. So for example, some of the tails that I felt like were a little bit too excessive, and also some of the lines that we used is pretty much just guidelines. So at this point on the shoe, I feel like we've really gotten a nice overall shape of the sneaker, and we've gotten all the main elements blocked out, which is obviously a very important part. Now what I'm going to do is actually go back in with some of the more minor details, like some of the perforations on the toe, maybe some of the laces, and maybe even some stitching details. Again, if you're drawing this digitally like I am, it's not a bad idea to create another layer and draw the details on the other layer so that they don't interfere with any of your base sketch. Now what I'm gonna do is actually go in and add the laces, because obviously the laces are an important part of the shoe. Drawing laces is actually super easy to do, especially when you're drawing them on a side view of a sneaker. All you really have to do is draw two sides of a triangle coming out of the eyelet, and then draw two parallel lines coming off that triangle, and then finish off the two parallel lines in sort of a curved, almost like half C shape. And of course you want to repeat that for as many laces as you want on the shoe. And then of course what you want to do is go back in and erase all the lines underneath the laces so it looks like the laces are laying on top of the rest of the shoe. And now what I'm gonna do is go back into the wings logo and add some details. I'm not gonna add all the crazy text, I'm not gonna add like each individual line of the basketball or the wings, but I'm gonna try and give it some shape so you have some understanding of what that logo is. So at this point on the shoe, I'm gonna add some of the very last minor little details, like a little bit of the tread, and also go back in and clean up some of the areas that need some work. Like this part right here, which is kind of just a double line sitting on top of each other, which just doesn't look that great. So at this point we've got pretty much all the detail that we need to communicate the overall shape and look of the Air Jordan 1 High. So now the last step is to add a bold outline around the entire shoe to really make it stand off the page. And that's pretty much it. That pretty much wraps up the tutorial for today. That's how I draw a sneaker, and I hope you learned something from it. As with pretty much everything, drawing is hard and it takes practice. So if you're not happy with your first attempt, keep doing it, because sooner than later you're gonna be better than I am, and some of you probably already are. If you'd like to see me design and draw some more shoes, make sure to check out the If I Design series. I've linked all the previous videos in the description below. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe down below if you haven't yet, and I'll see you all in the next one.